Here's a question I want you to sit with for a moment. Why does the pharmaceutical industry spend billions of dollars every single year marketing to doctors? Not millions, billions. Think about what that number implies. If physicians were rational, open-minded decision makers who simply evaluated the evidence and chose the best option, you wouldn't need billions. You'd need a good product, a clear brochure, and a competent representative. Pharma spends billions of dollars marketing to doctors because doctors are extraordinarily difficult to influence. And rather than complaining about that, rather than writing doctors off as arrogant or resistant or impossible, the pharmaceutical industry did something remarkable. They studied physicians scientifically, systematically for decades. They asked a question that most financial advisors never think to ask. Not how do we get doctors to buy, but how do doctors make decisions? And what they learned, what they built entire systems around, holds the key to one of the most consistently underserved markets. Today, I'd like to show you what they discovered and what this means for you. If we haven't met, I'm Dr. Vicki Rachner. I call in my experience as a practicing surgeon and student of doctors and their relationship with money to help financial advisors attract, engage, and serve more doctor clients. Let me describe something I hear from financial advisors constantly. They say, I know doctors need my help. I know they're overpaying in taxes, underinsured, and making financial decisions without good guidance. But I can't get them to return a call. I can't get a first meeting. I feel so invisible. If that sounds familiar, I want you to know two things. First, it's not your fault. And second, it's not an accident. Doctors are not difficult to reach because they're arrogant. They're difficult to reach because they've been trained to be. Their entire professional life has prepared them exactly for this. Think about it. A physician spends 4 years in college, 4 years in medical school, anywhere from 3 to 7 years in residency and fellowship. That's a decade plus of training, much of it devoted to developing sound clinical judgment, which really means they don't accept anything at face value. They investigate. They're skeptical. They demand evidence. They bring that same discipline to every interaction outside of the hospital. And here's the other piece. Every doctor is surrounded by people who want something from them. Pharmaceutical representatives, medical device companies, hospital administrators, real estate agents who specialize in physician mortgages. Doctors have developed what I call a professional immune system, a finely tuned radar for anyone who's approaching them to get something rather than genuinely to help them. Most advisors, without realizing it, trigger that immune system immediately, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they're using the wrong playbook. They're playing B2B or B2C, business to consumer or business to business. But this is a B2D world. Doing business with doctors is its own thing. I want to prove that to you with this story. Years ago, there was an episode of Shark Tank where a doctor entrepreneur walked into the tank. He had an innovative medical device, a proven market, and tens of millions of dollars in existing sales. The sharks immediately recognized the opportunity. This could have been one of the biggest deals in the show's history. Then the questions started. One of the sharks asked about profit. The doctor said, and I'm paraphrasing, I could be making a lot of money if I wanted to, but I'm not that interested in money. It's a tool I use to hire people. The shark responded, well, not encouraging words to an investor. And one by one, the sharks were out from what should have been an obvious deal. Now, was the doctor wrong? Was he being evasive or dishonest? Not at all. He was being completely authentic. He answered the way most doctors would answer, because doctors genuinely measure their success by clinical outcomes and service, not by profit. But he was speaking a language that sharks do not understand, and they were speaking a language he did not care about. That is the gap you are navigating every time you try to engage a physician prospect. Sharks and whitecoats are both intelligent, successful, driven people, but they're driven by fundamentally different things. Sharks ask, "Do you care about my money?" Doctors ask, "Do you care about me?" If you approach a physician the way you'd approach an entrepreneurial business owner, leading with returns, strategies, performance metrics, you're essentially sitting across from a surgeon in the surgeon's lounge and speaking Shark Tank language. And they will tune you out almost every time. Now, I want to address something. The moment I bring up the pharmaceutical industry in this context, some advisors push back. They say, "Hey, I'm a professional. I'm not going to be a pharmaceutical detail person showing up in a doctor's office with branded pens and catered luncheons." You are absolutely right. You are not. And that's not what I'm suggesting. Here's the analogy I want to offer. A cardiologist studies how the heart works, not because they're going to become a heart, because understanding the mechanisms makes them dramatically better at their job. The pharmaceutical industry has invested more research dollars into understanding physician psychology than any other industry on earth. The research doesn't belong to pharma, it belongs to anyone willing to learn from it. So what did they discover? Well, they discovered that peer influence matters more than almost anything else. Doctors trust doctors, not because they're cliquish, but because they share the same training, the same sleepless nights on call, the same professional language and culture. When a colleague recommends something, it carries an entirely different weight than a recommendation from a stranger. They discovered that repetition matters. Pharma research found that physicians need to be exposed to a message 6 to 10 times before they act on it. One touch point, no matter how brilliant, simply doesn't move the needle. Consistency over time is what builds the relationship. They discovered that education scales trust in ways that sales cannot. Doctors respond to evidence, to information, to expertise. They are deeply skeptical of anyone who oversimplifies or rushes to a conclusion. The advisors who earn physician trust are the ones who demonstrate genuine knowledge, not of financial products, but of the physician's world. They discovered relevance is everything. Generic messaging is invisible to doctors, but a message that speaks directly to their experience, the student loan burden that follows them into their 40s, the late start on retirement savings, the disability risk that most of their colleagues ignore, the tax inefficiencies buried in a busy practice, that gets attention immediately. And they confirmed what anyone who's worked with physicians knows intuitively. Relationships are the only real currency in the medical market. Doctors do business with people they know, like, and trust. That trust is built over time, not by a shortcut, by a clever pitch or an impressive biography. Pharma built elaborate, expensive systems around these insights. Massive sales force, speaker programs, continuing medical education curricula, research sponsorships. You can't replicate any of that, but you can do something pharma never can do. You can give a doctor a book. Think about what a book represents to a physician. Doctors are scholars by training and temperament. Doctors are scholars by training and by temperament. Their entire identity was formed in an environment where intellectual rigor is the measure of a person. They spent over a decade in formal education, demonstrating the ability to master complex bodies of knowledge. They respect books. They respect authorship. They respect the discipline required to develop genuine expertise, organize it completely, and express it in a form that helps other people. When you give a physician a book, especially a book written by another physician, specifically for physicians, something different happens than when you send a cold email or make an uninvited call. You're not interrupting them. You're not asking for anything. You're offering something of genuine intellectual value, authored by one of their own, about challenges they actually face. Now, let me layer in some science. There's a well-documented psychological principle called the law of reciprocity. When someone gives something of genuine value, we feel a natural pull, almost a social obligation, to give something back. Researchers studied this with something as simple as a mint at the end of a restaurant meal. When waiters delivered 1 mint with the bill, tips increased by 3%. When they delivered 2 mints, the tips increased by 14%. A server who delivered 1 mint turned back, made eye contact, and said, "For you special people, here's an extra mint." That increased tips by 23%. A book obviously is not a mint. However, a book written by a physician specifically addressing the financial challenges that physicians face, the things that actually keep them up at night, that is not a trinket. That is not a promotional item. It is a statement. It says, "I know your world. I've done the work to understand what you face. I respect you enough to give you something substantive." It sits on their desk, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. Every time they see it, they see you associated with something valuable, something that required a real investment. And here's the most important thing a book does, a thing that nothing else does quite as well. It lowers the professional immune system. Because a book doesn't ask for anything. It doesn't pitch. It doesn't persuade. It educates. It helps. It demonstrates that you understand the physician's world from the inside before you've ever asked for a meeting. That, my friend, is how you deserve a physician's attention, not by trying harder to get it. I want to leave you with the most important reframe in this entire conversation. Most financial advisors walk into the physician's market asking, "How do I get a doctor's attention?" That is the wrong question. The right question is, how do I deserve a doctor's attention? The difference sounds subtle. It is not subtle. How do I get their attention is about you, your tactics, your approach, your cleverness. How do I deserve their attention is about them, their world, their challenges, their standards, what they actually need. Physicians have spent their entire careers earning the right to be trusted in high-stakes moments. They are not moved by people who haven't done the work. They are not impressed by credentials alone, but they are genuinely moved and genuinely grateful when someone takes the time to understand them, to speak their language, to demonstrate through action rather than pitch that they have learned something real about what it means to be a physician in today's world. That is where trust begins, not with a conversation, with a gesture. And a book is the most powerful, most respected, most durable gesture available to a financial advisor who wants to serve the physician market. Now, you may be sitting with some very practical questions. What book? Where do I get it? To whom do I give it first? What do I say when I hand it over? How do I turn that first gesture into an actual client relationship? And those are exactly the right questions. And they have specific, tested answers. I've spent 15 years learning how doctors think, what earns their trust, and what causes them to disengage from my own experience as a physician and from helping financial advisors break into the medical market. I've built a complete system around using physician-authored books as the foundation of a doctor lead generation practice. It includes 10 specific campaigns, from your personal network to your existing clients, to power partners like CPAs or estate planners, to LinkedIn and paid advertising, each one designed to putting the right book in the right hands with the right message at the right time. It includes scripts, the swipe files, the digital book, the audiobook, the marketing tools, everything you need to execute and not just understand. It's called the Complete Doctor Lead Generation System. If today's conversation resonated with you, if you've known for a while that physicians are your ideal client, but you've been struggling to break through, I'd like to show you how the whole system works. If you follow the link below, you'll be taken to a page where you can learn more about it. Learn how my client Jim, for example, gave away 23 copies of my book and got 18 in-person appointments. To learn more about the financial advisor who hosted a book signing, who on a random Wednesday night attracted 300 doctors to a wine and cheese event. You've already done the most important thing today. You've started thinking about doctors in the right way, not as difficult prospects, but people with specific physiology, a specific culture, and a genuine need for exactly what you do. That shift in thinking is where everything begins. Again, follow the link below to learn more about this. And if you like this, there's more. Click here to watch the next video about how you can attract, engage, and serve more doctor clients. I'll see you on the other side.